Haidong! In this video, we're going to be doing a thrusting blocking drill. So the drill we're going to be doing is going to be working on our teidosei, so our long or our forward guard, and our backward stance. I should say guard, backward stance. Without any of the sword movements yet, all you're going to do is lunge and parry back. Lunge and parry. Just so again, transparency and all of that. This is also a rapier drill, or it's a modified rapier drill. I'm going to tweak it a little bit more so it's working more three-dimensionally. But for now, without the sword work, it'll be push long, pull in. The main thing I want you to think about is not necessarily pushing off the front foot, because that's going to make you very unstable. The idea is to curl your hip back, get back. So push in, push in. Now with the sword, it'll be thrust, block. I'll face you, right? So thrust, block that thrust coming in. Thrust, block that thrust. Thrust, block that thrust. So with a partner, we're going to be doing this. So obviously this is going to be very extensive on your legs. If you haven't been doing your leg exercises and all that fun stuff, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it really quickly. So the idea here is, so first we kind of know range, right? So the idea is if I come in with that thrust, he's going to draw back with that block. And with that same thrust, I'm going to block here. So thrust. So notice our front feet are moving, but it's getting used to, again, having that contact with the sword. So the main thing I want you to think about is, again, activating your glutes. So if you feel it in your knees or if you feel it in your calf, you're probably bending one or the other knee too much. So especially if you're like here and your knee's really bent and you try and do this, you're gonna feel it really deeply in your knee. Versus if you really sink back, also try and sit back on a very poor chair, but using your glute to push forward and parry. So let's do that drill a few times, right? So from here, I'm going to thrust, and noticing we're going to overemphasize our stance, and then thrust, boom, thrust, boom, oops, thrust, boom, 1 and 2. Likewise, we can do the other side, which I know we didn't. So from here, so likewise, so without the sword, we push, draw in. It's going to be the exact same motion, but we're here, and if I thrust on this side, yeah, right? So thrust, and then block. Thrust, block, thrust. Now obviously, this is not going to necessarily work in actual fighting just yet. The idea of this is mostly working on the stance and feeling the use of your glutes especially, and being able to push forward and retreat if you need to. Make sense? As you can probably imagine, going linearly and retreating linearly, not the best way, right? So we're going to do something very similar on an angle, right? So thrust straight forward. As I block, I'm actually going to move my foot over in the direction of the block, but notice I'm going to sort of stab straight. Block, then straight. So block on an angle, stab straight. Block on an angle, stab straight. Now obviously we can change this in the future, but for now just to make sure we're working and engaging with our partner, again getting used to the idea of actually having swords connected to each other, right? We're kind of building up just the sensation and the tactile response. We can move on an angle this way, and as you can imagine, here, other side, here, other side, here, other side, and being able to go both clockwise and anti-clockwise. So if we have our partner, so for the very first one, you'll need to go, I think it's upside down. So if I thrust and he blocks, right, and as he thrusts, I want to actually slide into my block. So as he does so, this way, linearly going for him, sliding back this way. Linear, 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 in, linear, in. Likewise, if we switch our feet, we can go the opposite direction, right? So if I thrust, and he thrusts me, so oops, step in, thrust, step in, thrust, step in, boom say, and then thrust, step in, thrust, step in, and thrust. So again, this is mostly working on just the tactility of the swords, as well as really getting those the sensation of pushing forward into an attack and drawing back with a retreat, right? Now, knowing that the retreat on the angle is going to be safer for you, again, it's not triggering that offensive response, and it's going to be generally safer. So with this, notice that we sometimes got a little bit close to each other's face. I might recommend, if you're brand new to this, maybe actually start with, actually I'm not sure if this will work with safety swords because there's not enough, there's probably too much friction, but probably wear face shield just in case, so you don't poke someone's eye out. So whenever you're really thrusting, wear a face shield. So I guess with that, make sure you stay safe, use a face shield, stay safe, stay humble, and keep training. Haidong!